Hello Guardians and welcome back Titans. I'm Profane and thank you as always for checking out the video. As we continue our journey through the best builds in Destiny, we turn our attention to an incredible Stasis build that's surprisingly powerful. And that's not something that you can say about a lot of Stasis builds. But because of the unique synergy that this subclass has with new artifact mods and one special exotic armor piece, this build has been able to rise to greatness here in Ashen Iron. Today's build revolves around the use of the ICEFALL Mantle, which provides the Glacial Guard intrinsic trait. This exotic requires the use of a Stasis Super, which does mean that it's going to work on Prismatic, but this will have much stronger functionality on Stasis. This exotic is going to provide us with a constant source of health and Frost Armor. As we defeat enemies with Stasis abilities and weapons, we'll build up stacks of Frost Armor, and whenever Frost Armor gets applied, we'll receive 10 points of health off of every stack that we gain. Each stack of Frost Armor provides just over 6% bonus damage resistance, and we'll be able to build those up to as many as 8 stacks because we are using the Whisper of Rhyme fragment, and that's going to give us the maximum benefit of 50% bonus damage resistance. Not only will we generate Frost Armor as we defeat enemies, but whenever we cast our class ability, we'll instantly grant ourselves with maximum stacks of Frost Armor, and since that provides us with 8 stacks of armor, we'll gain 80 points of health just by using our class ability. And instead of having a normal barricade, the ICEFALL Mantle replaces that with a special animation, which inflicts nearby enemies with several stacks of slow, causing them to become instantly frozen. So not only are we giving ourselves a reliable source of health and resistance, but because we're able to weaponize our class ability, we'll be able to improve our ability to manage and immobilize aggressive crowds of enemies. And because of several new artifact mods, we'll have extra sources to generate Frost Armor, and there's a lot of extra benefits that we'll get when Frost Armor is active. Before we get into all of our artifact mods, aspects, and fragments, let's talk about character stats and armor. This exotic revolves around the use of our class ability, and by building that character stat up to 100, we'll give any source of bonus class energy a 190% bonus. Building any further into our class stat would provide us with a small overshield whenever we activate our class ability. So that could really help improve our survivability, but even at 200 points, this is only going to provide a 40-point overshield. So I find it better to get our class stat to 100 and then focus as much into our weapon stat as possible, which means we'll need to keep an eye out for specialist armor. Outside of class and weapon stat, the tertiary stat that we should focus on will be grenades. That way we can improve the uptime of our glacial grenade, but since shatter damage does not count as an ability, we don't have to push that beyond 100. If you are having trouble building any of these stats up, then you might want to consider utilizing font mods, as these would provide an additional 20, 40, or 50 points to the desired stat. But I would not use weapon font mods, since you'll gain a larger damage bonus when using weapon surges. We could make use of Utility Kickstart, which would convert armor charges into class energy, but that would consume armor charges in the process, which would cut off the benefits of fonts and surges. As far as armor sets go, I would recommend going with Bushido or the new Iron Banner armor, since both armor sets provide us with ways of getting health back. To get the most benefit out of ICEFALL Mantle, we are using the combination of Tectonic Harvest and Diamond Lance aspects. We'll be able to generate Frost Armor for us and allies whenever we freeze enemies with a Diamond Lance, and as long as we're killing enemies with Stasis, we'll never have a shortage. And by using Tectonic Harvest, we'll create Stasis Shards whenever shattering crystals and frozen enemies. We'll get Frost Armor off of each shard that we collect, and in addition to the bonus health that our exotic provides, we'll gain an extra 10 points of health off of each shard. Intrinsically, Stasis Shards provide 10% bonus melee energy, so not only will this keep us loaded up with Frost Armor, but it's going to give our Shiver Strike ability a huge boost in its uptime. When it comes to fragments, we already spoke about the benefits of Whisper of Rhyme, but we're also using Whisper of Bonds, so whenever we defeat frozen enemies, we'll create Orbs of Power. Orbs create armor charges, which will keep fonts and surges active. This also helps us build up our super, and by using the Insulation Armor mod, Orbs of Power will grant bonus class energy. This would provide 4% off of each orb, but if that's getting a 190% bonus, then we'll actually be gaining just under 8% instead. We've got Whisper of Fissures equipped, which increases the radius and damage when crystals and frozen enemies are shattered. That's going to increase the radius of shattering by 25%, with the damage getting increased by 12.5%. And with Whisper of Torment, we'll gain bonus grenade energy whenever we take damage. This provides 7% off of each instance, but when Frost Armor is active, that's going to increase to 12%. And if we've built into our grenade stat, we'll have an abundance of glacial grenades to use. And from those, we'll have a constant source of Frost Armor and health regen. And the final fragment that we're using is Whisper of Hunger, which increases the amount of melee energy that each stasis shard provides, increasing the energy from small shards to 17.5%, with bigger shards going to 75%. So between our fragments, aspects, armor, and exotic, we should be able to maximize the uptime of all of our stasis abilities, allowing us to maintain a steady supply of health and frost armor. And with improved crowd control and survivability, we'll have an easy time getting through even the toughest of activities. We mentioned earlier that we have several artifact mods that are going to improve the performance of our stasis build. The first of those is Fever and Chill, which grants additional stacks of frost armor as we land consecutive precision hits with any stasis weapon. And if we were to be using solar weapons, which we do intend on using, this would give us radiance whenever landing consecutive precision hits with solar weapons. And that would give all of our weapons a 20% bonus in damage, which is an invaluable benefit that we would otherwise not have. Elemental Coalescence will extend our ability to create stasis shards, as we'll create additional shards whenever rapidly defeating enemies, but this will only generate one shard, whereas Tectonic Harvest can generate several. We'll be using Elemental Daze whenever champions are present. Stasis makes it easy to handle overload champions, and with the right combination of weapons, we'll be able to cover all 3 champion types. And by using this artifact mod, we'll create elemental explosions and inflict elemental debuffs whenever champions are stunned. And with the use of Frigid Glare, we'll trigger freezing explosions whenever landing precision funnel blows with any stasis weapon. But that's only going to happen when Frost Armor is active. But that's going to greatly expand on our ability to immobilize aggressive enemies. And that's something that we can expand on even further with the use of Frost Renewal, which will send out that freezing burst whenever we break enemy shields. And in addition to freezing enemies, this will grant Frost Armor to us and nearby allies. Our final artifact mod option is a bit of a toss-up, and I'll leave it at your discretion. We could use Elemental Overdrive, which would give us a 10% bonus in stasis weapon damage whenever we collect a stasis shard. This bonus would stack with weapon surges, our character stat, and activity modifiers. But we could instead make use of Shield Crush, which would increase the uptime and damage of our Shiver Strike whenever Frost Armor is active, and whenever we trigger Radiance, this is going to increase the uptime and damage of our grenades. Shatter damage isn't going to count as an ability, so the bonus energy is the most appealing benefit out of Shield Crush, which does make me favor Elemental Overdrive. That way we're able to mow through enemies at a much faster rate, especially if we've built into our weapon stat, and we're using weapon surges. Now when it comes to weapons, there's quite a few standouts, both in legendary and exotic form. Legendary weapons with Chill Clip, Cold Steel, and Headstone are always welcome, but there's also Crystalline Corpse Bloom, which is a new option available on the Seraphine Haze, and in the right situation, that could result in us creating a lot of stasis crystals, which would be very cohesive with our build. But we should also keep an eye out for weapons with Demolitionist and Strategist, as these traits would increase the uptime of our grenade and class energy. As far as exotic options, my preferred weapons are Wicked Implement and Aegir's Scepter. We don't have the most powerful super with this build, so Aegir's Scepter can be a great alternative so that we can still pump out optimal damage. Otherwise, you'll find a ton of success out of using Conditional Finality or even the Cryothesia. One exotic that I really wish we could use with this build is the Vergless Curve. The fact that it creates its own stasis shards means that it would synergize really well with this build, but since the bow itself does such minimal damage, it's not worth using. Even though Stasis Titans in general have seen their fair share of nerfs, the ICEFALL Mantle really gives this class an opportunity to shine. So if you're a new or returning player looking for a great new Titan build, then you should try out the ICEFALL Mantle, and once you've given it a go, let us know what your thoughts were. If you need help getting this build set up, then be sure to check out my Mobalytics and dim links, which are down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about today's build, the ICEFALL Mantle, and anything else going on in Destiny. Let us know your thoughts down below. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. So does being a member. So a big shout out and thank you to all of our channel members. And before we close things out, I just want to remind everybody that I'm still in the Face of Halloween contest, but I'm going to need your help to get to the finals. So if you could, be sure to check out the link that I'll leave below and toss in your free daily vote. But until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.